Welcome to episode number 35 of the Soulful Menopause podcast. I'm back. Yes, it's been over a year since I've recorded a podcast episode. This last year has been a time of major transformation for me. Literally everything in my life has changed. It's been one hell of a ride. It's been tough and very challenging. However, I'm coming out the other side now, all shiny and new, with a story to tell. Now, I think you're going to resonate with this story. I'm going to share the Soulful Menopause Journey, which moves through 3 stages: the sacred gateway, tending the cauldron, and the sage woman's destiny. 3 mystical, magical, and deeply soulful rites of passage that can help you to find a focus, help you to find a deep anchor and empowerment as you transition through the chaos of menopause. Want to find out which of these 3 mystical phases you're in right now? Stay tuned. Welcome to the Soulful Menopause podcast. Discover how to transform the chaos of menopause into vibrant health and a soulful life you'll love. I'm Sally Love, natural nutritionist and soul wisdom coach. I want you to experience a soulful menopause that'll guide you into the best years of your life. Oh my word, that was one hell of a ride, I can tell you. Over this last year, I simply couldn't produce any podcast. I could hardly do any work at all. I had to go on a deep, soulful journey. My soul took me down a path that's been the most challenging of my life so far. I was led down a path that required me to step up and be brave. I had to learn how to be fully present, even though I was facing some really scary changes in, every aspect of my life, actually. This part of my journey has really challenged me to the core. I hope that this podcast episode provides you with a new framework to your menopause journey. I hope it inspires you, and I hope it empowers you. So for today's comeback episode, yay, I'm going to introduce you to the Soulful Menopause Journey. This is something I've been working with over the last year and a half. It has grown with me. My clients have experienced it, and now it's ready to be experienced by everyone, by you. And the best way I thought to introduce you to it is to tell you a little of my story and what I've experienced as I've transitioned through these 3 sacred stages of the Soulful Menopause Journey. Now, you've heard me say many times before that menopause isn't just a physical experience, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual as well. Sharing my story like this will hopefully help you to see how true this really is. So, as I said, the 3 mystical stages of the Soulful Menopause Journey are the sacred gateway, tending the cauldron, and the sage woman's destiny. So it's now time for me to tell you a story. Are you sitting comfortably? Great, then I'll begin. As we enter perimenopause, which is the time leading up to menopause, we enter through the sacred gateway. Now, this phase can last several years. It's when your hormone levels begin to change, and change stirs things up. There's always going to be some chaos with change. So this is when everything becomes erratic. Your periods are all over the place. Health issues pop up. Your thoughts change. Your emotions become erratic. Honestly, you're all over the place. Your sense of belonging is challenged, and you can feel really very ungrounded. You can feel vulnerable and confused as well. This phase of perimenopause, when you step through the sacred gateway, usually begins around your early to mid 40s. Now, the changes can sometimes start quietly at first and gradually build up into a bit of a crescendo in my case. So I want you to imagine that before you reach perimenopause, you've been walking down the path of your life, walking down a lovely path with lovely flowers and things around you, enjoying the sunshine. You're carrying a backpack, and every experience in your life, every decision, every new thing you learn, every new belief you create about life is represented by a stone that you pick up. Some life experiences are small pebbles, teeny tiny little pebbles. Some are really large, heavy rocks. You pick them up, putting them in your backpack as you walk along the journey through your life. Well, by the time you reach perimenopause, your backpack is pretty full. and usually this time of life is when you find yourself at a crossroads. You see that one of the paths ahead of you has a beautiful sacred gateway at its entrance. Over the gateway is a sign that reads, "Unburden your rocks and stones." You know that if you choose to walk through the sacred gateway, you have the opportunity to lighten your load. It's now your choice whether you enter the Soulful Menopause Journey or not. When you step through the sacred gateway, you find yourself in a strange and beautiful land. You take a moment to sit down and remove your backpack. You realize how heavy it is. You start to take the pebbles and rocks out of your backpack one at a time. And as you do so, memories start flooding back. Thoughts, emotions, flashbacks of all sorts of memories start flying all around you. All the various life experiences these rocks and stones represent are coming up and out of your backpack for you to see. Regrets, fears, shame, guilt, struggles, frustrations, as well as all of the joys, the successes, the loves, and the happy times, they all start swirling around you. The sacred gateway brings chaos into your life, but this chaos is here for your healing, for your soul's growth. When you entered through the sacred gateway, you made a choice not to keep on carrying the heavy burden of these rocks with you on your new path in life. You wanted a fresh new start where you could just feel lighter on every level, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. You just knew, deep in your soul, you knew that it was time to deal with this. So you know that you need to take all of these rocks and stones out of your backpack and examine each one. It's time for all of these life experiences to be seen and honored. It's the start of your journey into a new rite of passage for you. The sacred gateway is a time of chaos. And because there's so much chaos going on, because there's so much coming up for you, it's not a time to make sense of anything. If you did try to do that, you'd just find yourself even more confused and overwhelmed, simply because it's chaos. And in chaos, you can't see clearly. It's just time for all of these stones and rocks to be cleared out of your backpack and acknowledged. The chaos is stirring things up, like clearing out a stagnant pond. You first need to acknowledge the mud, the sludge, the dirt in that pond to be able to start the process of clearing it. For me, the sacred gateway put my whole being into chaos. I had a huge amount of health issues arise, such as hot flashes, terrible digestive issues, even where I couldn't even have a glass of water without experiencing some chest pain. I got Achilles tendonitis in both ankles and had to stop playing tennis, which I really loved. I had anxiety, depression, a loss of libido, insomnia, headaches, body aches and pains, nightmares and dreams of death, a painful rash on my back, which lasted for months, restless legs at night. I had low energy and low motivation, pins and needles all over my body, memory problems, terrible memory problems, painful sex, bloating, weight gain. Oh, and lots of fears came to the surface as well. And before all of this, I was a very optimistic, confident, and adventurous person. Now, suddenly, I was plunged into just feeling full of fear and worry all the time, which just wasn't like me at all. And it felt debilitating. You know, I just sort of had no sense of focus anymore. I lost a sense of self. I lost my zest for life. I felt unattractive, and I just didn't care how I looked. You know, I kept describing myself as a blob. I just recently read through some of my journals, and all I kept saying there was how I felt like a blob. That's exactly how I felt, a blob. And memories would suddenly pop up during the day, as if from nowhere, just flooding me with various emotions and thoughts. My relationship with my husband was very challenging at times. Plus, he just couldn't understand what I was going through. And to be honest with you, a lot of the time, I couldn't even understand it myself. If I tried to explain how I felt, it usually ended up in a terrible argument, making me feel even worse because my husband was dealing with a lot himself as well. And we were pressing each other's buttons a big time. I was in a land of chaos where I felt lost, exhausted, unsupported, and disempowered. This, my friends, is the sacred gateway. Now, we all experience it differently depending on our beliefs from childhood, our life experience from childhood until that point in time, plus all the choices that we make along the way, our health history, and so much has a big impact on how we experience this stage. And by the way, I didn't experience all of these health issues at once. They gradually appeared and disappeared over several years. At some point during my time in the Sacred Gateway, I began to see what was happening. I knew deep in my soul that this was my calling for some reason. So I called on my earlier training, various ways of training I've had throughout my years of life. And I called upon all of these different techniques to find ways to be anchored so that I could be like a tree, strongly and deeply rooted to the earth, even though there was this huge gale blowing wildly around me. And the thing is, you have to let the gale blow, because what you resist persists. The more you try and struggle against the chaos of the Sacred Gateway, the more you try to fight it, the more resistant and forceful it becomes. This is a time to honor your journey of life so far, to witness everything that has come before. At some point during the Sacred Gateway phase, an entrance to a cave appears. It's enticing because it promises some shelter from this gale of chaos you've been in. So you walk inside and you're guided into the depths of the cave by torches illuminating the way. You find yourself in an enchanted clearing, a magical place, your own cave. Standing there is your guide, a beautiful, wise old woman wearing a deep purple cloak. She welcomes you with her kind eyes full of wisdom. She guides you towards a cauldron. This is your cauldron. It's full of a dark liquid. Welcome to the phase of tending the cauldron. Your elder guide explains that this cauldron is full of all of those life experiences that came up for you during the Sacred Gateway. Now you've honored them, it's time to look within all of these experiences so that you can process them and find your jewels of wisdom. Now, if I go back to my analogy of the stones and rocks for a moment, this phase of tending the cauldron is when you're effectively cracking open those rocks to find the jewels of wisdom inside. The jewels of wisdom represent the soul lessons learned from each of those experiences. Ultimately, you want to crack open every stone and rock, let go of all of the heaviness, and let go of all of the stories that surround these life lessons. So you're just left with a handful of beautiful jewels you can carry forward on your new path. Basically, you want to move forward from here, carrying a light and refreshingly empty backpack. The only way to do this is to begin stirring your cauldron, looking within its dark depths as the liquid gradually reduces down. All the energies of your life experiences will gradually evaporate into the air as your cauldron bubbles away. Some of those things released will smell pretty bad, and some will smell beautiful. As you tend your cauldron, you're sifting through your life experiences, processing and letting go. Once the liquid in your cauldron has boiled down, you'll be left with a handful of beautiful colored jewels of wisdom in the bottom. These jewels contain the wisdom of those life lessons, nothing more, just pure wisdom. I spent about 5 years tending my cauldron. Now, when I say this, please don't get despondent about how long this phase could take you. Firstly, everyone's journey is different. And secondly, I was going through this alone, and it was my soul's journey to experience all of this fully, because it's my destiny to teach this and support other women as they transition through menopause. It was a necessary part of my journey. I spent a long time experimenting with so many different healing techniques. Some I'd learned from my past and some new therapies as well. And this means that, if we happen to work together, you'll very likely transition through this phase a lot quicker than I did, significantly quicker, that's for sure. Actually, I hope that you could even get through it much quicker just by listening to my podcasts, because sometimes just the awareness of where you're at can be so very empowering and healing. So tending my cauldron was when my deep psychological work began. No wonder I attracted my then husband into my life, because not only was he pressing all of my buttons, helping to bring everything up into the open, but he has a lot of knowledge in psychology. I began to realize that he was triggering a trauma response within me that began many years ago when I was in a physically violent relationship. In fact, there were many triggers being activated on pretty much a daily basis, so it was tough. I began to realize that these triggers went as far back to when I was 2 years old. So I went to therapy, I researched, I practiced so many different techniques. And one particularly life-changing technique for me was EMDR, which is an amazing and very simple therapy that helps your brain to reprogram past trauma. That was an absolute game changer for me. During my tending the cauldron phase, it became apparent that my marriage wasn't healthy. I tried working it through with my husband for years, but he just wasn't ever in a place to go to therapy with me. After all the processing I did, all the trying I did, I realized the very, very painful truth that this relationship wasn't going to be my happily ever after as I'd once hoped. In fact, I resisted this truth for a long time because I loved my husband so much. When we weren't pressing each other's buttons, we shared some wonderful times together. So I kept hoping that things would change. I always thought that, if you love someone, if they love you back, if both of you love each other, you can make it work. But I came to a stark reality that this is just not the case. Love sometimes just isn't enough. And I read a quote that helped me so much. I read this every day to myself, sometimes multiple times a day. The quote is, sometimes you have to make a decision that will break your heart, but give peace to your soul. Sometimes you have to make a decision that will break your heart, but give peace to your soul. So we went through conscious uncoupling together, a beautiful, mindful, heart and soul-led journey, guiding us through the process of changing our relationship, of uncoupling. This was another life-transforming process for me, well, for both of us, I think. We were able to uncouple with love and respect for one another. Now, at the time, I was living in the States, as I had been for about 7 years or so. And so I then was faced with a major decision, whether to stay in the States or go back to the UK, where I'm from. For several reasons, I chose to come back to the UK, and this is where I am now. But wow, that was a painful process for me, because my soul had tethered to the land I was living on. I loved it there so much. I loved that land. I had this beautiful sacred connection to it. And it was the longest time I have ever lived in one place. 2021 was a year of moving out of my home, leaving behind the sacred land that my soul felt comforted by. I got divorced. I temporarily lived with dear friends in the States for a few months before it felt right to return to the UK. And then I lived in a few other temporary places until I found a home to buy, which I did with astrocartography, by the way. This is a subject for another day, but astrocartography is amazing if you don't know about it. It's using your astrology to find out what energies you're likely to experience in different parts of the world. So I moved into my new home at the end of August 2021, and I got a puppy at the same time. What was I thinking? My advice is never do that, by the way. Don't go and make all these major changes in your life, move home, and a week later, after being in your new home surrounded by boxes, you end up getting a puppy. I don't regret getting my puppy because I love her so very much, but she has been a lot of hard work and it was just too much for me. But we've moved through it. And I've been hibernating in my new home with my puppy ever since we moved. And this has been my cave. During this time, I've dealt with some worsening health issues such as chronic fatigue syndrome. The final dregs of the cauldron were being released, and I was continuing to process everything from my childhood to present day. My tending the cauldron phase only just ended on Sunday, the 2nd of January this year, 2022. It happened to coincide with the dark moon, which signifies endings. I was woken up in the very early hours of the morning by such a strong calling to sit and write up the key parts of my life story so far, along with all the life lessons from each, basically write up everything I had processed over the last 5 years. Now, I think I began writing about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't stop until the sun came up. I don't know, maybe it was around 8 o'clock in the morning or something. When I did stop, suddenly there were my jewels of wisdom right in front of me. Everything I had processed, all of these life experiences had reduced down to a few very clear soul lessons. Wow, this was such a major aha moment for me, I can tell you. The clarity just hit me like a tidal wave of deep inner knowing. After all the work I'd done, I felt a massive energetic shift, even down to a cellular level. It was one of the most visceral, physical, and whole being energy shifts that I've ever experienced. The next day, my health began to improve. I felt renewed. It was such a relief. It was as if I had finally shed all of those rocks and stones from my backpack. I felt so much lighter. Now, menopause usually happens at some point during the tending the cauldron phase. This is when you've gone 12 months without a period. So back to our story. There you are in the cave. You've boiled down the contents of your cauldron into some beautiful jewels of wisdom. You gather up your jewels of wisdom in your hands, and suddenly a doorway opens in the cave wall, leading you into the sage woman's destiny. A sage woman means a wise woman. The sage woman's destiny is a fresh new start. You're carrying a whole lot of wisdom with you into this new beginning. The wisdom contained in your bright, shiny jewels, beautiful wisdom you can draw on. You step into a vibrant new land full of promise. You're here to realize your destiny, to live to your full potential, to live to the truth of who you are, who you've now become. It feels like springtime in this new land. You feel lighter and more optimistic. Sparks of passion and joy and creativity and inspiration and many other wonderful things are starting to rise up within you. Now you've let go of the heavy backpack, you've got room for new experiences to come in. You've created room for new growth, a fresh new start. And because you're moving forward with your jewels of wisdom in hand, you have the opportunity to shape your life the way you want it, free of all the old belief patterns that were previously holding you back. So, who is this new wise woman you're stepping into? How do you want to live your life? What do you want to experience from this new cycle you're entering? For me, suddenly the passion returned to start my podcast again. So here I am. I wouldn't have had the energy before. And I am so thrilled to be here with you again. I can't tell you how happy I am to be connecting with you again. You know, I realized that it was time for these 3 stages of the Soulful Menopause Journey to be heard by more people. I'm feeling the pull to start writing my book. My health is improving dramatically. I really do feel like I've just walked out of a dark cave into a sunny, happy place. I must admit I'm a little dazed though, because, you know, my eyes feel like they're just adjusting to the light right now. So whilst I'm adjusting to this new phase of the sage woman's destiny, I'm asking myself questions such as, who am I now? How do I want to show up in the world? What are my new beliefs? How do I need to show up differently? How can I use these jewels of wisdom to move into the life I want for myself? I'm getting ready to express my true self in the world. As I answer these questions, new challenges arise, but now I have all the wisdom, tools, and confidence I need to move through them quickly. This is a time of self-mastery, of deepening into my true essence. Some of my old patterns still want to be heard as they continue to fade away, but now I've dealt with them all, I can allow them to just simply wash through me, you know, no matter how uncomfortable it can be sometimes. These are just old, outmoded vibrations that are gradually fizzling out. They also remind me, though, to keep installing my new belief patterns so that they can take a firm hold, drowning out the past ones. So I'm really excited to see what the sage woman's destiny holds for me now. There we have it, the sacred gateway, tending the cauldron, and the sage woman's destiny. I'd love to know what phase you feel you're in right now and what resonates most with you as you listen to this. I really do hope that this helps you in some way. You know, the menopause journey can be really lonely and challenging, especially as most of the information you find is limited to just the physical symptoms when you know that there's so much more going on than that. It really helps other women to know that they're not alone in this journey of transformation. So If you'd like to share your experiences, especially with which phase you're in right now, please do send me an email, and I may just read it out on this podcast so that we can all be seen, heard, and supported. Sharing our stories and gathering together in a group of like-minded women is so very empowering. Let's support one another as we move through this journey together. So please do get in touch. You can email me at info@soulfulmenopause.com or get in touch with me via my website, soulfulmenopause.com. I'd love to hear your stories, especially if you're happy for me to share them with other like-minded ladies on this podcast. It really helps to know that you're not alone. To find out more about how you can live a soulful menopause, please visit soulfulmenopause.com. I'm really looking forward to being with you again soon. Bye for now.